US Girls, for joining us with Earfeeder. If we were to do a starter guide on US Girls, what would that look like? Maybe some albums that you grew up with, or essential things that you can't live without for music.
Well, if we're looking at US Girls starter guide, like Young Meg, definitely Bruce Springsteen, Darkness on the Edge of Town, all AM radio oldies,
Nice.
the entire
Cool.
genre. And then Suicide, the 2 Suicide albums, Royal Trucks, massive influence. 𝓼𝓾𝓫𝓼𝓬𝓻𝓲𝓫𝓮 it was an eye-opener for me.
Who's
Her
that?
work. She's a woman who worked for, like, BBC had this thing called, like, the Radiophonic Workshop or something, and it's basically just experiments with sound and tape, and she worked for it, and she made some pretty strange music. There's a record called White Noise that you maybe know that has like a lightning bolt on the cover. It came out in the 60s. She's in that group. That They weren't really a group. They didn't like perform live. They made this one strange record called White Noise, and it's really amazing. So.
Was she around a certain scene or era or location?
I think she was around BBC.
BBC, right?
BBC. Yeah, and at a time when there was advancements happening in technology, but not that fast. So you had time to mess around with the gear that you had, and like a lot of people who were wiring things together and changing the speed of tape machines and things like that, like if you know Joe Meek at all, like he really fit in with that as well. Like he was doing pop music production, but with very DIY home electronic wizard kind of stuff, and doing things like using the reverb in the bathroom and using like just brooms banging on the floor for drums and
that's really
all kinds of
cool.
strange things like that.
Sort of avant-garde
But
electroacoustic stuff.
in pop, like he had lots of pop hits.
Wow.
And his whole like thing, or like one of his, what he is famous for is that he like passed on the Beatles, and then he ended up kind of disintegrating into psychosis, a large part because he was like a queer man in a culture that you weren't allowed to be queer in, and he I think took a lot of amphetamines and things like this, and he ended up killing his landlord and then himself.
What?
Shooting her with a shotgun and then killing himself. Yeah.
I've never heard of this.
He's amazing. His record, like, because he was a producer, so you don't hear of Joe Meek, but he's very connected to 𝓼𝓾𝓫𝓽𝓻𝓲𝓫𝓮 in the sense that while he was making all this pop music, he was also doing his own records. Like he made this record called I Hear a New World, that's bizarre space music. And it's interesting, like his music was influenced by like the space race and what was going on then. Yeah. He made that big hit Telstar.
Okay.
If you know that, it was a massive worldwide hit, but it was an instrumental song, and you'd know it if you heard it. But it's like to be a hit as an instrumental song in 1962 or whatever is pretty rare. No vocal, and it's a very spacey song. So he was doing a lot with like, making tape delay and things like
really
that.
Cool.
Yeah,
I find that actually makes a lot of sense in terms of your music, and like hearing how that sort of production technique and avant-garde style reflects with like maybe pop approaches or whatever. It's very cool. What are you currently listening to? Is there anything you're excited about?
Like new things?
Yeah, it could be new, like what it could be from an old era, maybe artists that you feel like deserve more recognition.
Well, we're touring with a woman who performs under the name Jane Inc. And I'm very much into her music, and she writes it all, produces it all, plays it all herself, designs the lighting rig for the live show. I'm really into her record. We listening to like in the house just lots of jazz that I don't know the names of.
Yeah. Is
Because
it
I don't
loud,
really.
or is it...
All manner of jazz. My husband is a voracious music searcher. Like, I don't really seek new music anymore. Things come into my house, and then I listen to it and like it and remember it. But a record that is really stuck with me that we got in the past year, which is an old record but was new to me, is this group called Ramp, which is Roy Ayers Music Productions, and it was I don't know if they put out more than one record, but this record that they put out is phenomenal, like very future music, like sounds like it could be from now, very funky, has 2 singers on it that are not the greatest singers, but they're the perfect singers for the project, and I definitely like music made by producers. Hidden, where they're using other people and saying do this, and it's all under their kind of thumb,
Curators, maybe.
Yeah.
That's very cool. What are you finding that you're listening to when you're on tour right now? I guess you just started, but
yeah.
Do you have anything that you're maybe putting on the back burner to listen to while killing some time?
Thong Song on repeat. Yeah.
Thong Song, that's great.
It's such a good song, and like found out that it was written, like the music for it was originally written for Michael Jackson.
The Thong Song?
Yeah, like without the lyrics.
Yeah,
like these producers made it and were gonna pitch it to Michael, and they accidentally gave it to Cisco on like a DAT tape.
Yeah.
And he
Cisco
heard it, and he was
it.
like, I need this, and they're like, it's for Michael, like we can't. And then he was like, no, I'm literally getting on a plane to come back, I need this song. And then they were like, okay. And then he took it and wrote all those vocals over it, but he also like worked with someone to write the string line that goes over it, and which is a variation on Eleanor Rigby, which is pretty wild, and it's such a good song. The production on it's really wild. So I like listen to that song and lie and think about it a lot, because it felt like I want to be reminded that like in popular music there's adventurous people, and I think that is still now. Thong Song's old at this point, it's 20 years old or something more. But I still do think that there's adventurous people in commercial music working now. And we see little glimpses of it, like who's the guy too that worked with Solange, who now works with 𝓼𝓾𝓫𝓮𝓻𝓲𝓫𝓮. That's another record that I love.
The new Solange one?
No, I didn't know she had a new record.
Oh, it was 2019.
Oh, no. Yeah, he works on that record. What the heck is that guy's name? But yeah, you'll know it. But he just produced he did the new 𝓼𝓾𝓫𝓮𝓻 record, if you've heard that, and then the one just before, John something. Anyway, that guy, like he's doing all these other things. He's making his own music, but then he's like touching Solange stuff, which is that's his kind of mainstream. Not as mainstream as you can get, but it's pretty mainstream.
Definitely, some of the biggest artists, Yeah, there is a lot of I find there's still a lot of experimentation in mainstream music with like The Weeknd working with One Tricks Point Never.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. I never would have foreseen that 10 years ago.
No.
Which is very cool, but you get creative. Is there anything that, maybe we can give you a minute to think about it, but anything that you feel like you are forgetting that is essential to you? Something you grew up with? Bruce Springsteen is very cool to me.
I mean, definitely.
It's my dad's favorite artist.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Bruce and Billy Joel. All the singer-songwriters that were of my parents' era.
Randy Newman, sorry.
Randy Newman, I haven't really gotten into. He wasn't one of the ones that was like in my household. So he comes up all the time. Like I should check him out. But it was more Bruce, Billy Joel, Don McLean, American Pie.
Yes.
Huge. That song in Vincent, like massive songs. And like what taught, like my parents loved to tell you what a song was about, you know, like, well, this song's about this, and you know, they were thinking, you know, like, because I think the radio used to talk more about that stuff. My parents talked about there would be like hour-long episodes or programs about American Pie on the radio explaining what each thing meant and stuff, you know what I mean? And basically what was instilled in me from my parents and those singer-songwriters was an importance on lyrics and listening for them, and phrasing too, just vocal phrasing, and and a character in your voice. And I think that's always what I wanted, was to have my own character that sounded like me, and then phrasing that no one else could do, basically. Try to put as many syllables in as possible, you know?
Oh, that's really good. The new album's great too. I used to play basketball to American Pie by 𝓼𝓾𝓫𝓮𝓻, shooting over for hours.
It's a good song. It stands up. I just heard it on the radio recently, and I was like, it's a great song.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything you want to plug? Your album, I guess?
I mean...
It's out. It's great.
Yeah, I've got 7 others that came before, and many singles, and I've been I've been doing this for like 17 years, so there's lots of music out there to listen to if you want to check it out. And there's a lot of people in my band that make amazing music. 𝓼𝓾𝓫𝓮, I would say check out his records. He made a record called 𝓼𝓾𝓫 2 years ago that's amazing. My husband's group, Bad Jepic Ensemble, is which contains our percussionist, and one of our keyboardists is phenomenal, and they put out a record called Clouds of Joy this past year that I can't recommend enough. So
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was amazing.
Great.